A young, beautiful, and famous actress was financially supported by a coal mine owner 12 years her senior. But that was just the beginning of her descent into the abyss. Once a vibrant and stunning young woman, she was suddenly covered in wounds and rushed to the intensive care unit. However, while barely able to move, she mysteriously fell from a high floor. The police investigation results left everyone in shock. What is the truth behind this massive mystery? In 2012, a young and talented singer named Ningna had a thriving career. She was a gifted artist, both a second-tier actress in China and a top-tier singer. However, in May of that year, Jang was suddenly attacked, suffering multiple stab wounds, and was rushed to the hospital by her boyfriend. While in the hospital, the 31-year-old, despite being conscious, suddenly fell from a second-floor window. Half a month later, she was declared brain dead. The incident was soon widely covered by the media with headlines such as, "Female singer falls mysteriously from a building in Nanjing." The case quickly drew massive public attention. Before any official statements from investigators were released, rumors began spreading online. Some sources mentioned that the singer had multiple stab wounds. Others claimed she had been sexually assaulted before her death. Some even speculated that she had been pushed from the building, resulting in her fatal fall. On May 23, 2012, in Nanjing City, Jiangsu Province, China, a distress call from Dachang Hospital in the Nanjing Industrial Zone broke the silence of the night. The report indicated a person had fallen from a high-rise building. When the police arrived at the scene, the victim had already been rushed to the emergency room. Medical staff, with a grave expression, informed the officers, "The patient's condition is critical, with minimal chances of survival." Preliminary investigations revealed that the victim was Ningna. 3 days earlier, on May 20th, she had been admitted to the hospital with multiple physical injuries. Dr. Liang, who directly treated her, explained that when she was first admitted, she had 5 to 6 visible wounds along with fractures in her pelvic bone and hand. After local anesthesia, she underwent a minor surgery that lasted about an hour for wound stitching. Post-surgery, Ningna's recovery was stable. She was conscious, responded clearly to questions, and showed no signs of refusing treatment. However, the situation took a grim turn on the night of May 23rd. Police interviewed the caregiver responsible for Ningna's care. The caregiver recounted that around 7:30 p.m., she had assisted Ningna to the restroom and then left the hospital room to prepare hot water for her hygiene needs. Upon returning roughly 8 minutes later, she was shocked to find the room empty. The bathroom was also unoccupied. Looking around, she then noticed Yanjun, Ningna's boyfriend, standing next to the hospital bed with a noticeably angry expression. The atmosphere had turned strange and tense. When the maid sensed something was wrong and turned her head toward the balcony opposite the restroom, she saw Ningna lying motionless on the lawn below, sending chills down her spine. This unexpected tragedy triggered a series of unsettling investigations. The police conducted a thorough investigation, meticulously collecting evidence at the scene. The forensic examiner discovered 2 distinct footprints on the balcony where Ningna had fallen, one on the left and one on the right. Upon comparison, they matched the pattern on the soles of Ningna's sandals worn during the fall. Additionally, the examiner obtained a fingerprint, though further verification was required to confirm whether it belonged to Ningna. However, these pieces of evidence only added to the complexity of the case rather than clarifying the truth. Combining the physical evidence with the maid's testimony, the police initially concluded that the likelihood of criminal activity was low, leaning more toward an accident or a deliberate act by the victim. However, this conclusion was immediately met with strong objections from Ningna's family. Her father, Zhang Fu, questioned the police's assumptions, arguing, "You can't conclude she jumped on her own just because her fingerprints and footprints were found on the balcony. If someone had pushed her, she could have left those marks while struggling." Mr. Jang further pointed out that the balcony railing was approximately 5 feet tall, and the window only opened on one side, making it difficult for even a healthy person to climb over, let alone Ningna, who had just undergone surgery with a broken hand still healing. How could she possibly climb the railing herself to jump? Zhang Fu not only rejected the police's conclusion, but also directed his suspicions toward Ningna's boyfriend, Yanjun. he revealed. I only learned about my daughter's fall when I received a call from Yanjun. However, when I rushed to the hospital, he was nowhere to be found. Facing his daughter's critical condition, Jang had to follow the doctor's instructions and sign the critical condition notice while paying for the surgery and hospital fees. When he regained his composure, he realized Yanjun was still missing. He called Yanjun multiple times, but there was no answer, and eventually, his phone was turned off. Why did Yanjun disappear? What did he know, or was he hiding something? Jang Fu's questions only deepened the mystery surrounding the case. Along with the suspicions raised by the family, the police revisited Dr. Liang, the lead physician treating Ningna, hoping to gather more clues from her hospital admission details. Dr. Liang recalled that when Ningna was admitted, she had multiple injuries, including fractures in her pelvic bone and hand. She explained that the injuries resulted from marital conflicts. However, during her hospital stay, her interactions with her boyfriend, Mr. Li, seemed amicable, as they even referred to each other affectionately. Regarding potential abuse or threats, Dr. Liang stated, "We couldn't confirm any such issues. During the surgery, Mr. Li was absent, and when Ningna regained consciousness, she neither sought help from the staff nor mentioned any need to contact the police." At the same time, police noticed that some media outlets began interviewing Ningna's family and friends, which further complicated the case. Ningna was born into a well-off family with strong emotional bonds. Her father was a senior executive at a state-owned enterprise, and her mother, Mrs. Tai, was a music enthusiast. Under her mother's influence, Ningna showed artistic talent from a young age, especially in singing and performing. During her school years, she frequently participated in talent competitions, where she shone on stage, earning rounds of applause and numerous honorary awards. Recognizing her potential, her mother decided to provide her with professional training. Ningna later passed the entrance exam for an art school to systematically study music and performance. After graduation, she became a professional singer, regularly performing on city and provincial stages. During a major cultural event, she captivated the audience with her unique voice and outstanding stage presence, even earning a spot on China Central Television, CCTV. This performance marked a significant milestone in her career, opening doors to commercial performances and setting a turning point in her life. At the peak of her career, Ningna met the man who would change her fate, Li Yanjun. Their encounter took place during a performance in April 2009, shortly after Ningna had ended a previous relationship and was emotionally vulnerable. Yanjun, 12 years her senior, was a coal mine owner worth hundreds of millions of yuan. However, his appearance and education were unremarkable, having only completed elementary school. His rough exterior contrasted sharply with Ningna's artistic elegance. Yet, his appeal lay not in his looks, but in his lavish displays of affection. He frequently brought large bouquets to her dressing room after performances, and even volunteered to be her personal driver, regardless of the hour. Yanjun's passionate pursuit quickly won over Ningna, who was still healing from her recent heartbreak. Despite being married with a wife and children living in Ningxia, their romantic relationship blossomed. Initially, Ningna's family strongly opposed this relationship. Her parents did not want her emotionally dependent on a married man, nor did they want her labeled as someone breaking up another family. However, Yanjun's persistence and overwhelming displays of affection gradually softened their stance. After divorcing his wife, he showered even more love on Ningna. His sincerity eventually convinced even Ningna's friends and family that he was genuinely committed to her. However, the bliss did not last. Cracks began to appear in their relationship once the initial infatuation faded. Friends of Ningna recalled that a year into their relationship, she often had visible bruises on her face. Though she frequently blamed clumsiness, those around her grew increasingly suspicious. The tension came to a head during Ningna's 30th birthday party when an uninvited guest, her ex-boyfriend, arrived with a meticulously prepared gift of a necklace and earrings. The atmosphere turned awkward, and Yanjun, overwhelmed with jealousy, lost control, leading to a heated confrontation with Ningna. From then on, Jang Ningna's injuries appeared more frequently, causing friends to worry about her safety. Beyond violent tendencies, Yanjun also revealed another dark side. He was discovered to be addicted to both gambling and drugs. These issues gradually made Ningna realize that the man who once promised her a bright future might not be worth trusting for life. Her doubts intensified when Yanjun's ex-wife, shortly after their divorce, approached Ningna directly and revealed that Yanjun had agreed to remarry her, hoping Ningna would step aside. Facing these troubling revelations, Ningna gradually lost faith in their relationship. In April 2012, she finally decided to break up with Li Yanjun. However, just as she was about to end the relationship, she discovered she was pregnant. The pregnancy left Ningna deeply conflicted. She wondered if she should give Yanjun another chance, but he not only denied responsibility for the child, but also pressured her to have an abortion. Under his coercion, Ningna underwent an abortion on May 11th. Less than 10 days later, she was hospitalized again for severe injuries. This time, she couldn't escape her tragic fate. The woman who had once shone brilliantly on stage was now ensnared in a mysterious and devastating tragedy. Her relationship with Yanjun had become the central issue in the case. While the police were conducting their investigation, Ningna's family made a critical decision to transfer her from Dachang Hospital in Nanjing to Jiangbei People's Hospital, which had better medical facilities, hoping to save her life. At the same time, her mother, Mrs. Tai, rushed back from abroad. The day before Ningna's fatal fall, while Mrs. Tai was still in the U.S. for vacation, she had spoken with her daughter over the phone. Ningna's voice sounded weak, as if she was completely exhausted. When her mother anxiously asked what was wrong, Ningna only whispered, "I'm dizzy and have no strength left," even mentioning that she had fainted the previous day. Recalling this call, Mrs. Tai couldn't hold back her tears, regretting deeply, "If I had returned earlier, maybe my daughter wouldn't have faced such a tragedy." In the intensive care unit, Ningna lay unconscious on the hospital bed, the rhythmic beeping of medical machines echoing in the room. Mrs. Tai sat helplessly beside her, gently holding her daughter's cold hand while softly singing Ningna's childhood favorite song. But no matter how desperately she sang, Ningna showed no response. While cleaning her daughter's body, Mrs. Tai noticed something shocking: severe swelling in Ningna's private area. She froze, overwhelmed by a terrible suspicion. Could her daughter have been assaulted? This suspicion wasn't baseless. Family members later recounted that during Ningna's 3-day stay at Dachang Hospital, Yanjun not only visited daily, but also brought along 5 young men who looked like gang members. These individuals, appearing to be in their 20s, acted suspiciously and lingered around Ningna's hospital room. Their presence raised deep concerns, hinting that a darker truth might be lurking behind her tragedy. Seeing her daughter lying unconscious, Mrs. Tai felt as if her heart was being torn apart. She was determined to uncover all the suspicious details surrounding the case, no matter how painful the truth might be, and to seek justice for her daughter. On the night of June 6, 2012, at 10:30 p.m., outside the emergency room of Jiangbei People's Hospital, Ningna's family waited with hopeful anticipation for a miracle. However, the final announcement shattered their hopes like a thunderclap on a clear day. Despite the doctor's best efforts, Ningna tragically passed away. The family's heart-wrenching cries echoed through the hospital hallways, casting a shadow of sorrow over the night. However, at this very moment, an event occurred that further enraged the family. Immediately after Ningna's death, officers from the Jiangbei District Public Security Bureau in Nanjing entered the emergency room and sealed off the area, preventing anyone from entering. Ningna's family was left waiting outside the emergency room for over 2 hours without any explanation. When the officers finally emerged, several reporters attempted to question them about what had occurred during the 2-hour period, but they were blocked by the police and forbidden from taking photographs. The Jiangbei District Public Security Bureau then proposed transferring Ningna's body for further investigation. This request left the family furious. They could not comprehend the sudden actions of the police and began to suspect a connection between the authorities and Yanjun, fearing a possible cover-up. The family refused to cooperate and sought assistance from the Nanjing City Public Security Bureau. After a 30-minute wait, staff from the Nanjing Forensic Center arrived at the hospital. However, when the family requested to see their credentials, they were denied. This refusal further fueled the family's suspicions, making them believe there were undisclosed secrets behind the tragedy. In the midst of the chaos, some journalists tried to mediate between the two parties, ultimately reaching a compromise. Ningna's family followed the forensic team's vehicle to the Nanjing Public Security Bureau's forensic center to await the results of the autopsy. However, when the police released the autopsy report, the family's doubts remained unresolved. The report concluded that Ningna had not been sexually assaulted, and the swelling in her private area was due to complications from the abortion surgery. Yet, Ningna's family remained deeply unsettled, recalling the series of strange events from the time of her injury to her fatal fall. They felt everything was riddled with suspicious inconsistencies. The family pointed out significant discrepancies between the diagnostic reports from the two hospitals and reported that during Ningna's hospitalization, a suspicious man had been seen following them. When they reported this to the police, they were told the man was mentally ill and dismissed the case. The family believed that both the hospital and the police's attitudes were highly questionable, suggesting that someone was actively trying to conceal the truth. The mysteries surrounding Ningna's death did not end with her passing. The next day, a reporter from a television station visited both hospitals where Ningna had been treated to conduct interviews and verify records. The reporter discovered that Jangbei People's Hospital had indeed documented swelling in Ningna's private area in their diagnostic report. However, Dachang Hospital had made no mention of this symptom earlier. To clarify the facts, the reporter returned to Dachang Hospital to interview Deputy Director Luo. Confronted with the reporter's questions, Mrs. Luo explained that Ningna's condition was related to her recent abortion and that the symptoms had not been apparent during her stay at Dachang Hospital. While this explanation seemed reasonable, it did little to dispel suspicions that Dachang Hospital might be concealing something. As media attention grew, pressure on the hospital also intensified. At this point, a media outlet revealed a shocking incident. A reporter had allegedly been violently assaulted while conducting interviews outside the hospital. This revelation instantly captured widespread attention from journalists present. When questioned about the incident, Deputy Director Luo insisted, "We are a healthcare facility focused on saving lives. Such violent behavior would never occur here." However, the unexpected happened when the reporter presented video evidence of the assault. The footage showed the reporter negotiating with a security guard at the hospital entrance while attempting to contact the hospital leadership for an interview. Suddenly, two vehicles pulled up, and several men dressed in black jumped out, seized the reporter's camera, and physically attacked him. In the ensuing chaos, Ningna's cousin, who was at the scene, managed to drive several reporters away from the danger, while the two vehicles continued to pursue them until they reached a nearby police station, at which point the pursuers vanished. After the release of this footage, the hospital's explanations fell under intense scrutiny. The incident had taken place right outside the hospital, with numerous witnesses present, yet the hospital insisted it was unaware of the event. Why would the hospital lie? Who were the men in black, and were they trying to prevent further investigation? More concerning was the lingering question: could these unusual actions be connected to Li Yanjun? As the video spread, public attention on the Ningna case intensified. The media and the public began demanding the truth. What really happened? Who was controlling the dark forces behind the scenes? Each new clue seemed to point toward a deeper conspiracy. Seeking more answers, the reporter visited the Jangbei District Public Security Bureau, where they were presented with a shocking development. Li Yanjun had been placed in criminal detention under suspicion of intentional injury. Now 44 years old and nicknamed Li Si, Yanjun had a criminal record, including previous arrests for illegal gambling and drug use, and was known to associate with gang members. On May 28, 2012, 1 week before Ningna died due to delayed emergency care, Yanjun had voluntarily turned himself in to the police. In April 2013, nearly a year after the incident, the Nanjing Municipal People's Procuratorate conducted a trial for the case. In court, Yanjun recounted the events leading up to Ningna's hospitalization on May 20th. He claimed that after learning Ningna was pregnant, he became extremely distressed, as he was certain the child was not his. This led to a heated argument between them. Yanjun insisted that the baby should be aborted, and to prove her innocence, Ningna agreed to the procedure. After the abortion, Ningna's health was fragile. Yanjun claimed he cared for her attentively at home, cooking all 3 daily meals for her. However, on May 20th, they argued again about the pregnancy. According to Yanjun's testimony, Ningna confessed that the child was not his and revealed that she had been drugged and sexually assaulted while intoxicated. Though angered, Yanjun claimed he remained calm and cooked for Ningna as usual. Upon returning to her room with the food, he found her lying on the floor, covered in blood, holding a fruit knife with visible cuts on her arm. Yanjun described attempting to take the knife from her, which led to a physical struggle between them. When the judge asked if he had struck Ningna during the altercation, Yanjun firmly denied it. He admitted that they frequently argued during Ningna's stay at Jang Hospital, including just before her fatal fall. However, Yanjun maintained that he had no involvement in her death. On the other hand, Ningna's mother, Mrs. Tai, testified in court, firmly believing that Yanjun was responsible for her daughter's death. She accused him of pushing Ningna from the balcony to silence her and prevent her from revealing the truth. While Yanjun appeared to have a motive, contradictions arose when examining the caregiver's statements and evidence collected around the balcony area. Furthermore, a nurse's testimony became a critical breakthrough in the case. Upon further investigation, the police discovered that before her fall, Ningna had repeatedly expressed suicidal thoughts to the caregiver. Her phone also contained messages resembling a will and farewell notes, suggesting she had lost hope and was contemplating self-harm. Regarding the injuries on Ningna's body, Mrs. Tai continuously emphasized that when she visited Ningna in the hospital, her daughter's body was covered in injuries, including multiple fractures, bruises, and lacerations. The prosecution presented a series of medical documents, including Jang Hospital's medical records, admission files, CT scan reports, and lab results. These confirmed that upon her admission on May 20th, 2012, Ningna was diagnosed with a head injury, open wounds on her right upper and lower limbs, and a fractured left hand. Initial assessments also noted subcutaneous hematoma on her scalp, multiple bruises around her eye sockets and lower jaw. The hospital records further stated that her injuries resulted from a domestic conflict, leading to head trauma and limb fractures. On May 22nd, it was diagnosed that the injuries resulted from external force, with a high likelihood of being caused by abuse. From the medical records presented by the prosecutor, it was evident that Jang Ningna had numerous injuries on her body. But how exactly were these injuries sustained? After reviewing the defendant Yanjun's statement to law enforcement and witness testimonies, the forensic expert concluded that Ningna's injuries were diverse. If she had inflicted them on herself, they would typically be more uniform and concentrated in specific areas, as self-inflicted wounds are generally simpler in pattern. The complexity and distribution of her injuries made this scenario highly unlikely, effectively ruling out self-harm as the cause. Additionally, several defensive and resistance wounds were identified on her body. These types of injuries commonly appear on areas such as the palms, elbows, the back of the forearms, and sometimes the outer thighs. Based on this, the forensic expert determined that some of Ningna's wounds were sustained while she was resisting an attack, matching the typical characteristics of defensive injuries seen in assault cases. Initially, Yanjun stubbornly denied ever harming his wife. However, when confronted with irrefutable evidence, he was forced to admit that due to his wounded pride as a man, he indeed lost control. However, he insisted that there was nothing more to it. He had no intention of committing murder. After reviewing all evidence and testimonies, the police concluded that Ningna's fatal fall was self-inflicted. She had reportedly been under significant emotional strain for a prolonged period, compounded by escalating conflicts with her boyfriend, Yanjun, which ultimately drove her to take her own life. However, Ningna's friends and family found this conclusion difficult to accept. To them, Ningna had always been a cheerful, optimistic woman who would never resort to such an act. They firmly believed it was a case of homicide. During the trial, one memorable moment occurred when Yanjun repeatedly emphasized the emotional aspect of their relationship. Twice he professed his deep love for Ningna, recounting how he had given up his previous family to be with her, yet could not overcome the pain of discovering that she was pregnant with another man's child. As Yanjun made these statements, his ex-wife and daughter sat in the public seating area. His ex-wife, also testifying as a witness, expressed how she had endured hardships alongside Yanjun for years, only to be abandoned for another woman. She went on to criticize Ningna harshly, stating, "She ruined my family's happiness and deserved what happened to her." Her emotional outburst was so intense that the judge had to interrupt her multiple times during the proceedings. In November 2013, nearly a year after the incident, the Nanjing People's Court delivered the highly anticipated first-instance verdict in Jang Ningna's case. The court found the defendant, Yanjun, guilty of intentional injury and sentenced him to 2 years and 11 months in prison. Although this verdict provided Ningna's family with a glimmer of justice, it did not fully quell their anger and grief. During the trial, Ningna's family filed a civil compensation claim for 2.3 million yuan, arguing that Yanjun's prolonged physical abuse and emotional torment were the primary factors leading to her fatal fall. They insisted he should be held accountable for their emotional distress. However, Yanjun's defense attorney immediately objected, stating that the prosecution had failed to provide sufficient evidence directly linking Ningna's death to Yanjun's actions. After reviewing all the evidence presented, the court ultimately dismissed the compensation claim. This outcome left Ningna's family extremely disappointed, believing it ignored the suffering Ningna had endured and allowed Yanjun to evade greater responsibility. The verdict sparked widespread public debate. Many questioned whether Yanjun's sentence was too lenient and whether dismissing the civil claim was justified. For Ningna's family, the lengthy legal battle did not bring true justice or solace, but instead deepened their pain and sense of helplessness. Though the trial has concluded, the controversy surrounding this tragedy is far from over. The Ningna case reminds us that choices in relationships can have lifelong consequences, particularly when dealing with complex or potentially dangerous dynamics. Rational judgment and emotional clarity are essential to avoid tragic outcomes. Ningna's decision to become Yanjun's mistress was closely tied to her emotional state and life circumstances at the time. Coming from a wealthy family and being exceptionally talented, she had grown up surrounded by applause. However, behind the glamour, she had also experienced emotional wounds. After breaking up with her previous boyfriend, she longed for care and protection. Yanjun's passionate pursuit, material support, and promises of divorce ultimately won her over. However, this choice was dangerous from the start. Jang Ningna underestimated the risks of being the other woman and overlooked Yanjun's true personality and emotional control issues. More importantly, she lacked clarity about her own emotional needs, placing trust in someone unworthy of it. Her tragic outcome, though driven by external factors such as Yanjun's violence, social pressure, and public scrutiny, was also tied to her own decisions. Had she assessed the relationship more rationally and set firm boundaries early on, she might have avoided such a devastating fate. And that concludes this story. What do you think about the verdict for this case? Share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next video.